Tell us why you chose to join the Air Force.
So I was born in Navy base, and I grew up around military life, should I say? And I really enjoyed watching planes fly, and I enjoyed the way everything worked on the Navy base and seeing the boats come in, come out. And that was mainly Navy, but I joined the Air Force because when I joined, I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. And I first started out as a firefighter. I really loved it. I enjoyed that job a lot. I got to see quite a lot of things. Then I decided to just switch jobs and do something more out there, to do more, to actually have an impact on lives. And first started out in saving lives, just purely saving lives. And then that was one of the things that I thought that I should be doing. I should be impacting people's lives. I should be doing something for someone else, giving other people a chance. Now I still do the same thing, but I do it in a more active way. I actually not only watch people or protect people from the skies, but I also hunt people that are looking to do harm, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something big, like I'm actually providing people a second chance.
How do you feel leaving everyone and your life behind to join the Air Force?
So leaving everything behind was tough. I've never actually been away from family or friends for a long time, especially by myself. Uh, Leaving, actually stepping in that bus to get on the plane to fly down to San Antonio, where I go to basic training, was actually very scary. I did not know what was coming. I watched a lot of videos on what training would be like, and what to try to prep myself for what to expect. It was very scary. You just didn't know what was going to happen. I had a lot of, I wouldn't say anxiety, but I was just very nervous as well. The part that made it the worst about the training was just wondering what's going on at home, because you're not allowed to really contact home. You're given these privileges towards the end of your training, and you're wondering what's going on at home. How's everything going? You have no insight on the outside world, because their purpose is to turn you into a military member, to try to mold you into what they need you to be. So just every night that I would go to bed and I would think about how are things home, how are everything's going, how's mom, how's dad, how's sister, just trying to think of what's going on.
Describe your position and your ranking in the Air Force.
So what I do for the Air Force is I'm an airborne ISR operator. So I operate sensors on planes. I make particularly in the plane that I flew, I look for things that were moving and make sure that people were safe on the ground. And I also provided intelligence for the plane that I flew in. This is a very important job on the plane, considering there's only one of me on the plane. There's none like it. Even though there's 30 people on the plane, there's only one of me. So it's a lot for me to do, make sure that my plane is safe, that the 30 people on the plane are safe, and the people on the ground that we're working with are safe. My job is Staff Sergeant E5. Not that high, but I'm definitely not that low. And I can tell you that for the kind of responsibility that I had in my job, that was a lot of power. I had the power to save a life or destroy a life. And in the what we call the kill chain nowadays in the military is where we find out the intelligence, find the sources, and that we are able to strike the enemy, and then reassess everything, make sure we hit the right enemy. And I was directly impacting that. I was right in the middle of it. So I work for sometimes a lieutenant colonel or a major, which is a pretty good rank, and I worked directly for that individual on a plane, which the plane was his to do with his responsibility, and he worked for the ground commander, which you're looking at a general. So I had a very short chain of command, and I had a huge impact on the war.
What has been the best experience you've had while being on duty?
So the best experience that I've had while I've been on duty was over the skies of Afghanistan. I was on the road doing my job, as a normal job would be any day of the night. I was talking to a JTAC, which is a Joint Tactical Air Control member. His job is to control that are flying over him to support the ground units. I call it the best experience because I was able to support directly the ground units on the ground that were fighting Taliban fighters and Al Qaeda that were on the ground. They were currently in a tick, which is also known as contact, and it was a rush, I would say, or adrenaline just rushing down my body, knowing that I was directly supporting people or ground members, service members, should I say, or brothers in arms that were fighting terrorists.
How did you feel coming back from your service at war?
So this question's a tough one. It comes in two parts. I was excited to come home to see my family and see everything that I left behind. Now, when we deploy or we go out for 3 months at a time, sometimes 8 months. The longest I've been out is 8 months. 3 months isn't too bad, but when you do it repeatedly, it gets to be tiring. It's a great feeling to come home and see your family, see everything that you left behind, enjoy the comforts of home. The other part of that question is a tough one because you're leaving everybody behind. People that you were supporting, people that you were over in the skies providing overwatch or looking out for enemy or targets that were nearing while they were sleeping at night. So it's a really tough question to say, yes, I'm happy or I'm sad, because you're coming home to something great, but you're also leaving something behind. And it feels like it's unfinished when you have individuals or other people that are in the military still on the ground doing their job, and they're still out there away from their families.
Tell us about your tattoos and what they mean to you.
So my tattoos mean a lot to me, actually. I know they're permanent, and sometimes some people are like, oh, I want to get them removed. But the tattoos I carry, I mean, they actually mean something to me, especially when I deploy or when I go away from home, what I have at home. For example, my wedding ring here, most people wear a band of some kind of gold or silver. I had it put on my finger because it reminds me of what I have at home. It's a permanent thing. When we fly, we have to take all jewelry off because we don't want to make sure that it doesn't get caught on anything or it doesn't hamper our jobs. And at all times, when I'm feeling down or when I have my job, it gets too stressed out, I just remember by looking at my tattoos that are readily available to me, like my arms or my finger, that I have family at home, that I have a wife. I also have a tattoo on my wrist for a cross, and sometimes, the best thing to do is just throw a little prayer because there's nothing you can do in some situations, so throw a little prayer, remind you to just pray for the people that are on the ground. Pray for what you're doing when times get tough. I also have another one. It's kind of hard to show, but on my forearm, it's life and death. That one is one of the ones that hits me the most because it reminds me that there's a lot of situations or decisions that I make while I'm on duty. It's a matter of life and death.
What kinds of trainings did you receive to be prepared for your job?
So do my job, the training that I received is pretty long. It took about a year to receive all the training that I need to do my job. From the beginning, I had to learn how to do my job. I had to learn how to actually operate in a war environment and peacetime environment. I also had to learn how to survive. So in case we crash over water, we had to learn how to survive with water, how to gather the materials from the crash site, how to deploy the life raft. Believe it or not, it's not that easy to deploy a life raft, especially when they're pretty heavy. How to find the survivals, how to link up with them, and how to wait and survive in the environment until rescue arrives. If we were to crash over land, we learned part of our training was to learn how to survive off the land. I learned how to hide from the enemy if we land in enemy territory. So we've actually had to eat animals, bugs. They were all eaten humanely, but we had to learn how to eat so that if we were confronted with that situation, we would not hesitate. We can come home alive. We were also put through, once we were trying to hide from the enemy, we also put through resistance training, which is also where we learned how to resist the enemy, how if we were caught. So we had to experience that just in case, if it ever happens. And then my next part of the training was learning how to actually fly, because not only do you have to learn how to do your job, but you also have to learn how to operate on the plane that you are trained to fly on. So that took quite a bit of time, because I had to actually, no kidding, fly with an instructor, fly over water, do actual missions before I was actually qualified to do it. And the training never really stops, because operations personnel, or like individuals like myself that actually go out and conduct war, have to stay proficient, have to stay able to provide that mission to the ground or the commanders. So we not only do the initial training, we have to re-qualify every year. We have to maintain our proficiency in training.
What was the worst experience you've had so far, and why?
So the worst experience that I've had so far was my last deployment. That was a really tough one. I'm not pretty sure we all know about ISIS or IS or whatever anybody wants to call it nowadays, but I still call it ISIS. That was a really tough one. While being deployed, actually flying over, doing missions, I'm sure everybody knows about Mount Sinjar, about the 3,000 people that were left stranded because they were surrounded by enemies. That was actually a very tough mission. It was probably the worst experience I had, because everything that I did depended on where these people actually lived or died. There was 3,000 people that were stranded, and we had to provide humanitarian aid to these individuals, and I had to find all the enemy before the planes flew by and dropped all the airdrop supplies. So it was actually the worst, I would say the worst 20 minutes of having to sanitize the area, trying to clear out the area, find out where the enemy was and where the friendly were before all the planes came in and actually dropped food and water to the individuals that were stuck on that mountain for about a week.
What is the most important lesson that you've learned?
So the one lesson that I would take home, and I always take home and tell everyone, is live life to the fullest, because you never know when you're going to come home, if you come home, or what you're going to find in the other side. So every time I deploy, I make sure that I enjoy the last few days at home before I go, because flying over these countries, we're not at full at war, but anything can happen. I was flying in planes that were older than both probably our parents. They're really old planes, and having to be in these planes, you just didn't know if you were going to come home or not. So living life to the fullest and enjoying every second of life is probably the best advice and lesson that I would say.
If you had a second chance to go back to war, would you go, and why?
Would I go back? The answer is yes. I joined the military to not only do my part in society, but also keep my family safe. I never thought that I'd actually be doing it from the skies. And the answer is yes. I would go back to protect those others that are out there pretty much suffering with the environment and all the hardships that they're having to endure through while they're out there. I would not hesitate to go to put on my flight suit and go back and do my part as in protecting those underground and eliminating the threats that are out there, for not only for the troops on the ground or neighbors of the area or family back home. I would do it over and over again until the job was done. I feel like that's my duty as joining the military.